Hello.
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 How are you?
Good, thanks. There's two of us, Margaret and Sue.
Fabulous. What part of the country are you guys calling in from?
Rodney, north of Auckland.
Even better. Well, I'm in the middle of Auckland now. Are you in lockdown there as well?
Yes, we're in lockdown.
Yes. Shared experiences and all that.
Yes.
I'll just wait for these other people to pop in. Yeah. Kia ora, Jan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hi, Delia.
Hello.
And hello, Phoebe. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Not too bad. A little bit tired, actually. I'm getting a little bit frustrated about this lockdown, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. I was just talking about that with Susan as well.
Yeah.
Delia, if you're able to turn on your video, that would be great, but no worries if you don't have video capability.
I do.
No. Hey, Delia, what part of the country are you zooming in from?
I'm in Auckland. I'm in Mount Eden.
You're in Mount Eden,
Yeah.
so we've got a lot of Aucklanders here. Jan, where are you zooming in from?
I'm from the opposite end of the country. I'm from North Otago.
Oh, well, you're probably having some nice late summer weather there at the moment, and you're not in lockdown, which is even better.
I'm really lucky. I appreciate, like, we take it for granted how lucky we are, but we do know.
Yeah, well, we've got to do what we've got to do up here. That's part of the deal being in the city, or city adjacent for those of us in Rodney who are unfortunately included in the lockdown.
Yeah.
So, kia ora everyone. I'm Luke. Phoebe, you know me because you've been at all of these. And for those of you who haven't been part of these Zooms before, I'm Luke. I'm helping out, just doing a bit of project support for Neighbours Day Aotearoa, helping get things going, get things started. And we've just got somebody else joining us now. Kia ora, Courtney. Welcome. Welcome, Courtney, to the Zoom. Please feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your video if you'd like. It's no worries if you don't have a video capability.
Kia ora. My connection's not very good, so I'm just going to leave the camera off.
That's totally fine. Let's start with a little introduction now that we've got some people in the Zoom. Let's go around and introduce ourselves, reiterate what part of the country we're in, and tell us if you're in lockdown at the moment, what you've been doing to keep your spirits up, and maybe if you're not in lockdown, something nice that you've done this week that perhaps we wouldn't be able to do up here in Auckland. So do you want to start with Susan?
Yeah, so we're in Warkworth, so we're in the lockdown. But Margaret and I, we're both coordinators for neighbourhood support. So basically we're essential. We've got to keep working together.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so we've been working away on funding applications, lottery grants, accountabilities, and meeting agendas, and Neighbours Day Aotearoa I just had to cancel, unfortunately, because mine was going to be on the 21st of March.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
And it was the Great Plant Swap. And I had plants going to be donated from a nursery in Mangawai, native plants, and seedlings from a company called Organic Seedlings in the Dome Valley. And a lovely man down the road's got more native plants, trees that he was going to donate. And the lovely Margaret here made up 30 envelopes full of Anzac Day poppy seeds. So that was our start.
Why do you need to cancel if it was going to be on the 21st of March?
Because we're just not sure what's going to happen next.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't know where we're going to be at.
Fair enough.
And you got to give people notice.
And what elderly people.
Yeah. So it was 4 streets that I run. Well, I've got 30 members in those 4 streets. And last year we had a really neat sausage sizzle and get together as an introduction. So your poster for the Great Plant Swap has just been magic. I just like to say that it's just magic to be able to promote it through that poster and that flyer. And everybody was receptive.
Well, that's good to hear. Maybe you'll be able to do it next year when we're a little bit safer.
Yeah, I've just postponed it to August.
Oh, even
That's a good
better.
idea.
Yeah, I hold it in August after the winter, and we've got the pest control, the Walkworth pest control. There's a big project going on around here to reduce the pests, so neighbours can get pest traps for rats and stoats to help the bellbirds. There's a corridor for the bellbirds that we're that the local community here are right behind. So I thought I'd incorporate that as well.
Well, that's a wonderful objective.
Yeah, that's the project that I had planned, but we'll still do it. We'll just do it in August, all going
That's
well.
the thing. It's a great idea, and it doesn't matter if you need to wait a few months. It's not going to change the fact that you've got a great idea.
Mm.
And what
Thank
about you, Jan?
Well, I'm in North Otago, so not in lockdown. We're on a farm, so we work 7 days a week, whether we're in level 4, level 3, level 2, or level 1.
Right.
Well, that's how it feels, but to be honest, I'm fairly remote, so our level 2 and 3 we don't, not a lot changes because we are just still working. Something that I might have done that I was out in my garden for most of today, but that's something you can do in level at level 3. But no, I'm really super interested in hearing what Susan was saying they were doing. I've just this minute been onto a nursery nearby to buy plants, not for a great plant swap, but getting native plants down here in the South Island at the moment is just nigh impossible because everything's sold out, and because of, I think, COVID level 4, people have planned gardens, and there's been so much more work outside. So I'm having to order now for like July pickup for plants.
Wow.
So, yeah, but anyway, what I've got planned, I work with a whole lot of community groups, so I sort of do a bit like Susan as well, doing grant applications and stuff like that. But I do 3 or 4 regular community shared meals. Now our communities, to get 40 members, we probably go, it's quite a big radius, and get people together at our local community hall. So we've got a shared meal which we do 3 or 4 times a year anyway, and we're either bringing vegetables, produce from our garden, or a can from the pantry, for like a food bank type thing, like a harvest festival, as opposed to plants to plant, because down here it's sort of the wrong time of the year to be putting stuff in the garden. You can do some winter veggie gardens, but yeah, you've got to be quite a keen gardener to keep things alive through the winter here. So that's the wrong time of the year, or that for plants, it's really the wrong time of the year to be doing that. But I've also arranged with a couple of the schools with seeds, because I'm one of the activators. So I sent some seeds from King Seed. So I've got the kids making wee seed packets that they're taking home and giving to neighbours. So I've got a couple of schools doing that.
That's interesting.
But because as my role of an activator, I've been going around all the community in our nearest town, which is half an hour away. Sort of community groups that work with like Grey Power, and they have like a newcomers group. So for anyone that's new to the district joins it, especially the English as a second language. So they've taken away seeds and they're working with the community garden, sort of getting them integrating into the community. So I've had really good success for doing things, but there's really only one other lady that I know is doing an event, but mostly it's groups incorporating the whole Neighbours Day theme into what they do regularly anyway. So, which has been really cool actually. It's been really, everyone I've spoken to has been really receptive, but have then sort of said, but we kind of do that anyway. So I've just said, well, use Neighbours Day as a way of promoting what you do. So sort of advertise yourselves against the Neighbours Day, or not against, but beside the Neighbours Day theme, just to promote yourselves. And that's been quite useful too, using that as a way of connecting with people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that there's a lot of people that we've spoken to who throughout the year continuously do all of these really cool and interesting things to activate their community and their local groups. And it's not necessarily about coming up with a whole brand new idea for Neighbours Day, but figuring out, hey, I already do this really cool thing. Let's use the Neighbours Day platform to uplift that and promote it a bit and celebrate the Neighbours Day theme. So that's amazing.
Pat themselves on the back too. That's what I said. I said,
Exactly.
look, it's really, you know, it's Neighbours Day as a way of promoting community, but also patting yourself on the back, because there's a lot of volunteers out there who, it's not they don't get recognition, but they don't really. And so sort of to acknowledge your volunteers as well.
Absolutely. And how about you, Delia? You might need to
I'm
unmute
going to
yourself.
unmute. Yeah, no, sometimes there's a little bit of an echo. We do this all the time now. We do these online meetings. Okay, so I've actually joined the Zoom session because I work with a program called the Walking School Bus. And the whole idea about our program is to get community on board as volunteers to walk their kids to school or back home from school. And that's our biggest challenge at the moment. It's a huge hurdle to get volunteer parents into the picture. So I just wanted to glean some ideas, but I mean, let alone that, I just, I thought I could promote Neighbours Day on our Facebook. I work for Auckland Transport.
Oh,
So I've got a good, platform, a good forum to promote it. And I see the correlation. I mean, it's all about promoting and encouraging and building stronger communities. So I think it's just a fabulous concept, and I just want to get some ideas on how to do that. At the moment, we have a problem in that most of the parents that I sort of try to reach out to are working parents. But at the moment, if there's one positive that COVID has brought about, it's that many parents have now, they've been given the opportunity of working a flexi day, as in flexi hours. So some of them can work from home. And for those who can, then they can volunteer their time just to walk their kids in the morning to school or back home in the afternoon. And that's where I'm at. But I loved, when I went onto the website, I loved the idea of the plant swap. I thought it was such a great idea. The poster was really great as well. It was very vibrant and very eye-catching, and it was appealing. I mean, I thought, oh gosh, if I could do that and just something like this in my street, it would be wonderful. I live in a little cul-de-sac in Mount Eden, and most of the residents on the street have been here for many years. And recently, we've got five apartments that have come up right at the corner of Rahiri and Mount Eden Road, but the people haven't, the new owners haven't moved in yet. So there will come a time very soon when, because we're just a stone's throw away from them, where I'll have to go and welcome them at least to the street. It's a lovely little street, and we've got lovely neighbours. And so that's me.
Fantastic.
I look after all of the walking school buses in central Auckland, by the way.
Wow.
So I've got about 103 active routes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a fabulous program because children, get some fitness incorporated into their daily routine. They become conscious of the environment. They walk together with their mates and their parents, and they feel really cool and proud about doing that. And the most important thing from our perspective is that there's less congestion on the roading network and around the school gate. So with less cars on the road, it makes for a safer journey to and from school. So that's our idea. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a fun program. Yeah.
And Phoebe, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and let us know what you've been up to in lockdown this week?
Yes, well, I am here representing the Forest Hill Community Garden, which is close to getting up and off the ground. And yes, this is North Shore of Auckland, so definitely in lockdown. And I have been enjoying being in the garden, which is not affected by lockdown, but juggling a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old amongst it all. So my 5-year-old's been helping me plant seedlings for the little seedling stand that we host outside on our driveway as a sort of promotional tool for the garden that's coming up. And I've also been madly propagating houseplants because our event is a houseplant swap. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope that we're out of lockdown, because we haven't postponed ours. We're just going to crack on if we are allowed to do so. So it's going to be very simple, just sort of turn up, bring a plant, have a chat, take a different plant home. So not too much to kind of organise. Yes, so that's me.
Sorry, where did you say the community garden will be?
In Forest Hill on the
yeah.
shore. Yeah.
Where I grew up, yeah. Cool.
Oh, no way. It's
Yep.
In the same road reserve.
Same road.
You know, yes.
Tyne Road and Sane Roads. Where Tyne Road, I lived in 3 houses in Tyne Road.
Oh, amazing. I can almost see it from over the hedge here.
How amazing.
Got
Lovely.
big plans for this little neighbourhood. You'll be glad to know.
We were going to add a sausage sizzle, and I applied to the Maharingi Community Trading Post to fund the sausage sizzle. So they were quite willing to do that, to give me the money for the sausage sizzle. Yeah. So now I have to go and tell them that we're not happening.
Yeah. Lots of news out there, aren't there?
Yeah, some wonderful, wonderful people, organisations.
And what about you, Courtney? Would you like to let us know where you're phoning in from and what you've been up to in lockdown this week?
Yeah, kia ora everyone, I'm Courtney. So I live in Waimamaku in the Hokianga in Northland, so we're in level 2 at the moment. I work for Te Aotearoa iwi as a environmental project manager, and I'm also a project coordinator for a local community hub in our town. And we are currently we're combining World Poetry Day and Neighbours Day and doing a poetry event in our town.
Wonderful.
So that'll be COVID dependent, just with music and poets and guest speakers. And one thing that we noticed over COVID was that our community really came together and everyone seemed to be really looking out for each other and looking after each other. So we're trying to build on that momentum at the moment and keep organising as many things as we can, and yeah, just keep that momentum going.
Well done. Well, I'm definitely feeling for everyone up in Northland and in the north of Auckland who are a little bit more cut off from the rest of the country, because you can't get up north without going through Auckland. So I feel for all of you. I'm calling in from Green Lane in Auckland. I'm here to help chat with you about your ideas and specifically about onboarding the community today. And I definitely feel for everyone who has had to cancel and move and change events. I myself was supposed to have an event happening in the Auckland Arts Festival this week, and that's obviously not happening. So we're hoping that we can move to level 2 next week and that we'll be able to open the festival under level 2 guidelines. But we just have to wait and see and cross our fingers that we'll be able to get out of level 3 into level 2, but not rush to it if it's not safe to do so. So now that we've all got to know one another a little bit, I just want to open up the floor for any general questions anybody might have, or specific questions of any kind, before I get into sharing a couple of ideas. Does anybody have any particular questions right now, or anything they're hoping to achieve out of jumping onto the Zoom tonight?
I think what Neighbours Day Aotearoa does for us is that we've got our original members in the street, but Neighbours Day Aotearoa helps us to promote, to bring the new people that have moved into the area that we might not necessarily have met yet. And so what I do is I saturate the 4 streets, whether they're members or not, with your flyers. And so that brings on board new people, like you say, connecting, that lady from North Otago, connecting people to your community. I think that's the benefit of Neighbours Day Aotearoa for us. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and definitely part of what I wanted to start talking about specifically is that using those resources to get the word out there is a great thing, but following it up and, like you say, saturating with flyers is such a great thing. So whether you're using the flyers or using the postcards to neighbours, which are on the website, or if you've got a little email group or text group or, you know, a Facebook event or something, it's almost like treating it like a little garden that you got to keep at. So it's making sure that you're feeding the message to people through their letterboxes or email inboxes or text messages or whatever way it is that you communicate with your own specific communities. Remember to keep those lines of communication open, because it's all very well and good to put it out there, you know, a Facebook event, this is happening, a plant swap, a sausage sizzle, a shared meal, but you want to, once you've got people who are reading the emails or picking up the flyers and that kind of thing, you want to make sure that you're keeping them engaged. So this is, you know, for example, if you're doing a Facebook event, making sure that you've got all the relevant information in there, but that you update the Facebook chat or discussion within the group, the discussion in the event, with updates for the event, like if you're changing the date or moving it or postponing it because of COVID, or if you're just popping a little update, like for example, Jan, don't forget to remember to bring your produce or bring a can for the food drive, that kind of thing. And then people are going to get those messages and it's going to keep them front of mind. Another thing to think about is for those of you who are living in places where you've got new members in your street, newcomers to the community, who may not have English as their first language, is that you're taking the steps to reach out to them. And that might be something as simple as ensuring that there's a really clear, simple, plain English message that can be really easily understood, that's communicated via text or email, or if you know that there's perhaps somebody within your community, like somebody from a new community group or somebody who has, you know, a really active WhatsApp group or something similar with their community, that you just pass on the information to them. And that's something as very simple as sending them an email with, hi, such and such, here's all the information you need to know about this event that's coming up, the who, what, where, and how of it. And then so it's something really simple that they can take and forward on to their networks or copy paste into the chat group or into their email group. I've found that, I personally don't have connections with every member of the community, but I might come across somebody who is an active member within, we're just welcoming somebody else to the group. So I might know somebody who, for example, in past projects that I've worked on, there's been people who are like, oh, I'm very active in the Chinese language community, and if you share the information with me, I will make sure I pop it into Mandarin or even just share it, but through that WeChat group, which is a social media platform that a lot of Asian New Zealanders use, or, you know, they're sending it to their own Facebook groups or community groups. So we all know that there's lots of different networks out there, from something like Grey Power and newcomers to community watch groups to library groups to people who might just have a Facebook group or email group with their own little community. Making sure that you've sent all the information out to these people representing the different groups, or who have the communication in with those different groups, is going to give them, basically you're giving them the tools they need to communicate it really, really easily. And that might be something as simple as, like Susan just said, downloading the poster or the flyer or the postcards for Neighbours from the Neighbours Day Aotearoa, filling it out and passing it on, or even just sending it on as a message. It's an olive leaf, it's a branch to reach out, and when you reach out halfway, you're making it that much easier for somebody to come to the party. So it really is, it sounds really simple in theory, but in practice, it really is just about making sure you make it as easy as possible for people to get involved in the event and remove any sort of perceived roadblocks. And often that starts with just really, really clear communication and making sure you've hit all the right channels. For example, your text groups, your Facebook groups, your email groups, or popping out and popping your flyer or your poster up at your local cafe or into people's letterboxes. The other thing is, don't forget that we, as Jan said earlier, as Neighbours Day, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about doing what you do really well, giving yourself a pat on the back and sharing that information with Neighbours Day Aotearoa through the form or what have you, so that it can be shared with the wider audience of Neighbours Day Aotearoa through all of their text and email groups and Facebook groups, etc. Welcome, Kitty. Would you like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the group? Hi, Kitty, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't work out how to do it.
That is totally fine. I just unmuted you because I've got the controls. Where are you calling in from in Aotearoa?
Te Kaupuru, so we're in the Kaipara. I think everybody in this one is, eh? But yeah, we're just south of Darwin.
Lovely. So are you in lockdown territory at the moment, or are you outside of lockdown territory?
Outside. Yeah.
Right, so you're the second person to be calling in from outside lockdown territory. The rest of us are stuck in Auckland in level 3, hoping that we might get out by Sunday, but, you know, playing it safe until then.
Yes, fair enough.
Would you like to just tell us a little bit about your involvement with Neighbours Day?
So a friend and I have recently, well, we've had this passion for a local schoolhouse that's pretty derelict at the moment. And we thought if we could get our local community at the location, we could have a picnic out there and then gauge people's interest in redoing it. So a friend and I we're already in the processes of starting redoing it, but we're just trying to see how many other people will want to help, and also if people want to join the committee, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that's where we're at.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a cool idea.
Yeah, hopefully. So like I said, we live rurally. So yeah, the community is all farmers, but they just need a space to connect. We're just finding that, you know, we all have these farms, but we don't actually have a location that we can meet and greet each other. Yeah, so we're hoping.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's a very cool idea.
Cool, thank you.
No worries. So we were just talking a little bit before you arrived about sort of the first step of getting people on board is making sure your communication's really, really clear, and that you don't forget about the people that you've invited. So it's a sliding scale. It's different, you know, events can go from something as simple as getting some people together for a picnic or setting up a stand for a plant swap or something like that, or, you know, a really large scale event like a group, community working bee to do gardening or a cleanup or you know, a big meal or something like that. The other thing I wanted to touch on, just a couple of things before I start opening up space for people to ask specific questions about getting the community on board, is I wanted to share with you, just touch on the idea of accessibility and inclusion. And I think all of you will be pretty familiar with your own communities that you're working with. But the idea about accessibility and inclusion is just making sure that anybody who wants to become a part of that group, be they a newcomer, a new resident to the area, somebody who's a little bit afraid about getting out of their house post-lockdown, making sure that your event is as inclusive as possible for them. And I mean, access can come in many different ways. It can be about just making sure there's somebody who isn't as stable on their legs or needs to walk with the aid of crutches or a walking stick or as a wheelchair user, making sure that there's actually somewhere that's like a flat surface for them to come in. I'm sure we've all had the experience of when somebody comes over to your house or to, you know, your office, and you realize, oh wow, these steps weren't made for everyone. Sometimes it's not always possible. Like, for example, Kitty, you might find that the schoolhouse is too dangerous to let people walk in on, but that people might be able to get up the driveway and participate in the picnic. it might be a case of, for example, if there's an event going on at a library, that you've let them know that we definitely need to make sure that the wheelchair accessible ramp is really clearly signposted, or that you've included in whatever invitation you've written out, there's a wheelchair access ramp available, a wheelchair elevator, you know, there's a ramp through the back door. You know, a lot of the time with older structures in New Zealand, you have to go around the sideway to let people access them. So you've just got to make sure that if those things are available for people, that you've communicated them really clearly. And I mean, this can come in many different ways, and it's going to be different for different communities. So I'm not going to go on about it for ages, but I'm going to show you a little something, which is an accessibility events checklist. And this is something that's a resource from the Christchurch City Council. Let me just make sure I can share my screen. Go. Awesome. So we're looking at, not that one. This accessibility. Can everyone see this blue document that I'm looking at?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this is just an example. And I'll send it out to people afterwards, but it's just going to help me go through quickly some of the things that we can check off and think about to make sure that our events are as inclusive as possible, and that we've made it easy for everyone who might want to participate to participate. So this is a resource from the Christchurch City Council. It's developed by the Christchurch City Council in conjunction with some access networks who advocate for a wider access and an easier access for people with specific access requirements to be able to participate in all sorts of community events, arts events, sporting events, and that kind of thing. So obviously you can ignore the bit at the top, which is like your name and organizer, because this is a specific resource for people who are sending in something for an event in Christchurch. However, what we can look at is these different rubrics, which help us to make sure we're ticking off the right things in terms of communicating events. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So this is pre-event information, and I'm going to go through it quickly, but what I'm also going to do is quickly send the page of it to the chat so that anybody who does want to have a little look at it is able to. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to do it once I finish sharing my screen, actually, otherwise it might pop away from the screen. Anyway, so the first step is your pre-event information. So this is what we were just talking about. It's how you communicate what's going on. You're going to note that they're called promotional material, PM in this.
Prime Minister.
Yeah, I thought it was Prime Minister at first as well, but no, it's promotional material. And this is anything from your emails, your texts, what you put on Facebook, your Facebook event, something you might pop up on Neighbourly, for example, checking off that you've got any what access requirements are catered for, and also encouraging people to get in touch perhaps if they have specific access requirements. Sometimes this isn't always necessary. For example, if you're getting together a community group that you already know really well, you might know people in and out, and so you know specifically, oh, that person needs to make sure that they've got an accessible way to get into the hall, that person has the specific dietary requirement, or we're going to need to make sure that this person sits near the speakers or near the people who are talking because they have hearing requirements. But this helps us to just make sure, if we're not so clear about that, that we're ticking that off our list. So it's talking about making sure you've got your promotional material arranged and available in a range of different formats, printed formats, websites. If you don't have a website yourself, your event will be listed on Neighbours Day Aotearoa website, so you can always send people to that you've got it on social media. And once again, I would encourage you to, if you're able, to use different forms of social media to get the word out. And if you yourself aren't absolutely au fait with a certain aspect of social media or a channel, shoulder tap a person who is in your group or close to you that might be able to help you, because this is all about bringing communities together, and there's nothing that helps community building like helping one another. Something here, contact information, makes it really clear for people who aren't sure to get in touch and get their sort of concerns addressed or assuaged. Your geographic location, venue, so that's your where it is. Always it encourages you to include a map. You don't have to draw a map yourself. You could just make sure that you're linking to a Google map, or that quite often, you know, if you're setting up a Facebook event, it's going to automatically have the map there. So that takes care of something for you. But this is perhaps an example if you're in a rural community and it's a bit of an off the beaten track location, like Kitty was talking about earlier. Maybe it's really easy to take a screenshot of the Google map and put a star or an X over the spot. I don't know if anybody's had this experience before where you put on an event off the beaten track, but an example that comes to mind for me is that my sister found an old school camp that she wanted to have her wedding at, and it was a great location, but we had to make sure people could get there from the wedding location, which was down the road and around the corner, but in the country. So a lot of people were coming down from Auckland and coming up from Wellington. So she just made sure to print off the map for everyone with really clear instructions of how to get there. And that just makes it that much easier for everyone and makes sure that they're not going to find a reason to not participate. Yeah. Affordability is there. I think that a lot of you, or if not all of you, are putting on free events. So affordability isn't necessarily a concern. But I would encourage you to, in whatever communication you're putting out there about your event, just make it really clear that it's free. There's a section here just going on. I don't want to spend too long on this. Getting to and from the event, things like bus transport, car parking, site accessibility, exit accessibility, taxis. If you've got an event that's way out in the country or a bit out of the way and you're expecting people to be driving there, just think about if people can park their car. It might sound obvious to you, but for somebody who's a little bit anxious or unsure about participating in the event, just encouraging them that, oh, you know, down the back of the hall, there's car parking and it doesn't cost. You can park there for as long as you want, or there's going to be a car park there and anybody who's participating in the Neighbours Day event can do it. Just leave a note on your dashboard. It's going to be different for different places, but just using this checklist to make sure that you've thought about these things. Bus transport is another thing, especially here in Auckland. We like to make sure that we're encouraging people to use the bus or the train or the ferry or other various forms of public transport to take congestion off the roads and also just get there safely. And quite frequently, if I'm having events, I'll just say the closest bus stop is, 2 minutes away, and the 061, 076 or something, these services drop off nearby. One of the most important things here is at the event, and I'm going to draw your attention to this getting around thing. For a lot of you, some of these check marks won't be as applicable because you're not putting on an event that's paid or requires people to purchase tickets to participate in. But something here, getting around, good signage within the site, clear, legible, contrasting background, adequate size lettering. That's something as simple as, wheelchair ramp this way in big, bold, black writing on a white background that you've just printed off Word, or something like, for example, for you, Phoebe, if it's like your instructions for your plant swap, it might just be printing out a big thing to say, turn up, bring a plant, take a plant, get to know your neighbours. It might be something like if there's big stairs coming to your event, but there's a driveway that people can access more easily if they can't access the stairs, just pop up a sign there. It doesn't necessarily need to be printed out. It just needs to be clear and legible. So you can get out the paper, you can get out the Sharpies or the permanent markers and just make it really super duper clear. It's not rocket science, but it's something that's really worth thinking about. And sometimes if we don't think of these things, it can pop up a few barriers for people who might want to participate in the event. So thinking of these things ahead of time is always a good idea. Another thing here that I'll pop in is toilets. Whatever event you have on when you're inviting people somewhere, you want to make sure there's toilets to use. If there's no toilets, you want to let people know that. So the thing that says ample accessible toilets, good signage to the accessible toilets. Most every venue in Aotearoa, be it a community hall, a library, something like that, is going to have accessible toilets. If you don't, you're probably going to be aware of it because you're putting on your event in a somewhat unconventional location. If your event doesn't have bathroom facilities available or doesn't have accessible facilities available, that's the kind of thing you want to say up front and let people know. And likewise, if it does, and it seems obvious, for example, you're using a community hall or a library or something, it's something as simple as popping up a sign on the night, or even just letting people know with a clear verbal housekeeping at the start of the event. The other thing I'm going to add here is this point about service dogs. You're probably going to know if somebody in your community has a service dog or needs to bring a service dog to participate in an event. However, if you're putting out the invitation a little bit wider, perhaps for somebody like you, Phoebe, you're trying to build a little bit of an audience for the Forest Hill Community Garden. If it's a dog-friendly event or an accessible dog-friendly event, you want to let people know that, because that's another reason that people can come along. Accessible service dogs are allowed in a lot more places than dogs that people will have as pets. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that it's not a problem to have a service dog there. But for people who rely on service dogs to get around, it's really just nice to know, to let them know in the email or flyer you're popping out that the service dogs are welcome. Or if you've got an outdoor event, like we've had a couple of outdoor events here in Auckland where people are welcome to bring their dogs, let them know that dogs are welcome, because that will be another reason for people to come along to the event. Or perhaps for somebody like you, Delia, when you're working with children in a walking bus situation, and I know that this isn't specifically a Neighbours Day event, but it's just an example that comes to mind. Sometimes you don't want to have a lot of strange dogs around with children. Yeah, so you just want to make that really clear up front. It's not, you're not breaking the rules if you don't allow dogs, but you're just making it really clear the terms of the event and the terms that people are turning up on. So that is my very quick rundown of this form. I'm going to send it to the chat so people can have another little look at it outside of this Zoom.
Sure.
Like I just want to reiterate, it's not a do or die checklist. It's not a you have to do these things, but for people who are wanting to open up channels for community connection, it's really good to at least start thinking about these things. And I know that everyone has their own specific experiences with communities. Like Jan mentioned that she's working with Grey Power. So Grey Power probably, if they're coming to the events a lot, they're gonna know the rundown of the event, but also Jan as the organizer is probably gonna be familiar with their specific requirements. But so she's probably got that back of mind. But it's always good to make that really clear at the bottom of the Facebook event or the bottom of the email. You know, all are welcome. There's a wheelchair accessible ramp, service dogs welcome, and accessible toilet facilities available. And that's just putting that into your pre-event communication makes it so that people, A, don't turn up and get really disappointed, or don't just not turn up because they think that there's not going to be a place for them. So frequently people who have specific requirements will just not attend an event or not even bother asking if it's not made clear. The easier you make it for these people to get the answers that they need about an event, the more likely it is that they're going to turn up. Now, before I open up the space for a couple of questions, I'm just going to show you the page on the COVID-19 website about getting a QR code poster and talk a little bit about COVID safe protocol at events. So obviously we've heard from Susan already that she disappointingly has had to postpone her Neighbours Day activations because of lockdown, and because the community that you're working with like to have that degree of assuredness that something's going ahead and it's going to be happening in a safe way. That's totally understandable. We're living in some pretty uncertain times, and we've all had different upsets this week and things that have been pushed out, postponed or cancelled because of COVID. And I know that we're all crossing our fingers that we'll be able to come out and the rest of the country will be in level 1 next week, and that Auckland will be in level 2. But we do have to sort of plan for the worst in the sense of having COVID contingencies, and that is making sure that if you're feeling unsafe or unsure about your event, that you just push it out, because as I said earlier, your idea is still a really cool idea, even if it needs to happen in August and can't happen in March. However, if you are going ahead with your event, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a COVID safe way. And it's really, really straightforward. The government makes it really easy. The first thing to do is to make sure that you have a COVID QR poster to scan in. So I'm going to share my screen again and show you.
Snail speech one.
Alrighty, so this is the Unite Against COVID-19 website, and I'm on the Get Your QR Code poster, which is under the Business, Work and Money section. You do not need to be a business to set up a COVID QR poster. All you need to get your QR code is a driver's license, address details of your location, your email address, and an email address and contact phone number. So you need your driver's license, you need the address of your event, you need your phone number, and where it says an email address and contact phone number for each of your locations, a lot of you will be only doing this at one location. If you're doing it at the community hall, you pop in the number and the contact details of the community hall.
Okay.
Likewise, if it's the library. If you're doing it in your driveway, it can be your details and your address, your email, your phone number. I've set this up for a couple of events. I've set this up for a couple of office spaces that I work in. It's really easy, and you just pop in here, complete the online form, wait for it to load. So you just need to verify your identity. You pop in your first name, you pop in your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your driver's license number and your license version. All of this you'll be able to find on your New Zealand driver's license, your email and a confirmation of your email. Once you accept the terms and conditions, it's going to ask you for a couple of things. It's going to ask you for that address of your location and the contact details of your location. If you're not sure of those things because you're working with a community centre or library or something along those lines, just send them a message or go check on Google, check on their website, find it out, pop it in there. It's not going to let me click next right now because I haven't filled in the form, but that's all it's going to ask for on the next page is those details. If you don't have that, you can use a ministry, you can download the Ministry of Health template.
I'm just thinking, Luke, with a public park, I would, so would I do this one or?
So what you'd probably do for a public park is you'd pop in the address of the public park, and then I would probably pop in, because you're the one hosting the event, because it's a public, it's a little bit difficult, but because it's a public park, it's managed by the council, but it's technically open for anyone. So because you're welcoming people to an event in a public park, in that case, I would put my own or your own details, just the address of the park, but your contact email and phone number. All this is if people need help, people in the government need help doing contact tracing, that they can call you and you can answer any questions for them. But the moment that you either fill out this form here, which is to get the official poster, or download the template, you're going to have this QR code to scan in, and you just encourage people to use that QR code to make sure they've got their Bluetooth tracing turned on. And the other thing is have some pen and paper. If people don't have a smartphone, people don't have the COVID app, you still have a chance to catch their name, their contact phone number, and their contact email address. There's a couple of other ways you can do it, like through logging in with your business Realme account. That's not really applicable for what we're doing because we're doing smaller scale community events. But it's really easy to do this. When I did it, they sent through the poster within 10 minutes. So it's fast, it's quick. You don't need to print it off in color. It can be in black and white. But if you have any issues, you can always go through the contact form on this website. And now that I'm just going to stop this share, and I'm going to share this link with the chat so people can look at it. The other thing to think about when being COVID safe is just making sure you've got hand sanitizer and or soap, water and towel available for people to wash their hands thoroughly, and encourage people to do so. I know it sounds like preaching to the choir, but we've just got to make sure that in these very uncertain times that we've made it safe and easy for people to get on board for the event. So we've given them all the information up front. We've made sure everything at the event is really clearly signposted or communicated, and that people have that extra degree of assurance in the time of COVID that we're being as safe as we possibly can be.
In terms of your promotional material, what's the stock standard kind of phrase that you use to just let people know that it's going to be a COVID aware event?
Yeah, and it's a good question. I would just pop, if I were you, at the bottom of your Facebook event or email, something like, we will have a COVID QR code for you to scan in, and physical contact tracing if you don't have the app. We'll also have hand sanitizer available, and encourage anybody who isn't feeling well to stay home. You're welcome to attend in a mask as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Because not, like I was talking about earlier, with all these different perceived barriers to access, somebody might be feeling really anxious about turning up to the event and not knowing if it's going to be COVID safe. So just even popping that one little line at the bottom of your flyer or the bottom of your email or in your Facebook event text is going to give people that, oh, okay, they're thinking about it just like I am, and they're taking steps to ensure that precautions have been taken and it's the safest event possible.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome.
Does anybody else have any questions about putting on an event in the time of COVID?
No, I'm just curious to know, Luke, whether numbers have been impacted. Are people reluctant to go to a public event, or are they being quite blasé and thinking, oh, look, we're pretty safe and let's go anyway, you know?
It's not quite one and it's not quite the other. People seem to be, at least from my experience and from what I've spoken to people about, people are really excited after the year that we've had to get out, meet people face to face, make community connections, but they're also understandably a little bit apprehensive. So it might mean that they wait until the day or two or the week prior to the event to make a decision about turning up. There are some people who are blasé about it, and which is unfortunate, but there's not a lot that we can do about that except set a really good example as event organizers, and that is about communicating that you've got a QR code, that you've got, you know, physical contact tracing available, encourage people to turn their Bluetooth tracing on, encourage people to wear a mask if they feel that they need to, and also encourage people, if they're not feeling well, to stay home and, you know, not participate in the event because they might spread sickness. So in my experience, it's that people are really, really excited about the prospect of getting out of their houses, meeting their neighbors, meeting their friends, doing something together, whether it's share a meal, get involved in gardening, you know, meet up for a coffee or a wine or something like that, get to a community hall event, a market, that kind of thing. But this is always ticking away at the back of people's minds. And the moment that you bring it out into the public, you're, just like I said to Phoebe, acknowledging it and allowing people who are concerned about it to see, I can see that they're thinking along those lines too, and that they've done X, Y, and Z to make sure that it's a safe event. And I feel that much more secure and safe about attending the event in light of that.
Again, in your promotional material, given the uncertainty factor, is there something that you would typically say regarding kind of preempting if COVID hits again, or, you know, if there is an interruption? Obviously, Susan, you've postponed and you've let people know. I'm just thinking on promotional material, is it worth kind of letting people know it will be rescheduled at some point, or just do you just say keep on?
At last year's one that I ran, I put a rain check date on the bottom of the flyer, and I said that the event was on the Sunday, and if it was raining really badly on the Saturday, we wouldn't hold it, and thankfully it was a fine day. But the one before that, I did the same thing. I put a rain check date. It was going to go ahead, weather permitting, put a rain check date, and I did the same thing. That if it's pouring with rain and the weather is inclement the day before, it will not go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
And I put a time, I think I put 4 p.m. the day before.
So maybe just putting a rain check date, weather and COVID permitting,
Yeah.
And having a rain check.
Yeah.
COVID check, whatever you call it, date.
Yeah. And the other things that, because Margaret and I are both life members of Scouts, we've run lots of Scouts events, and the things that we do without even thinking about it, but most people may not think about it, is a first aid kit on hand, a fully charged cell phone in case you need to call an ambulance, shade for hot days, water for heat exhaustion, seating for the elderly so they can sit down. And I just automatically just do these 10 things before I even start organising. Accessibility, can people get there? Can they park? Is it flat? I make sure that no one's going to have trips and falls. We got offered the motel down one corner of our street, but it actually worked out better to have the open reserve at the other end of the big street and get the gazebos from the district museum, and they were happy to lend us their gazebos because it was more easily accessible to pull up right beside the grass reserve and have the sausage sizzle right there at the footpath, rather than people having to manoeuvre around a motel site. So yeah, it's very important, accessibility and first aid and emergency and risk management, and whether it's low risk, high risk, medium risk, tick it all off, sign it all off before you.
Yeah, thank you mentioned seating, because I hadn't thought about that, but actually thinking that's a really good point, making sure there's seating for elderly. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and Susan, you just did a really great job of going through a mental checklist of all of these things we should consider before the event. And because you've been doing it for so long, it's coming naturally to you. And I love to see it. But for those of you in the chat who, or maybe watching this later, for whom it's not second nature, there are lots of resources out there to help you identify different risks and whether they're high or low risks and what you can do to ameliorate those risks ahead of time, but also making sure things like you've got a seating available, and that might be something as simple as talking to the guy around the corner and seeing if you can borrow his bench, or asking, you know, the local community hall where you're putting on outside, oh, can we use some of your plastic lawn chairs or something like that. It often just starts with a conversation, and it's about clear communication. But your point about making sure there's seats for the elderly, first aid, and that you're thinking about shade, sunscreen, and even encouraging people to wear sunscreen and bring a hat is a really good thing if you've got an outdoor event. And just all of these things, they may sound like, oh, nitty gritty, but for a lot of people, once you've taken care and checked these things off the checklist, there's like, oh, well, there's no reason for me not to go. If there's somewhere for me to sit, it's in the shade. If they're going to have a COVID scanning code, if there's, you know, an accessible way to get there in addition to the stairs, there's no reason to not attend. Because we talked about this a little bit last week, but sometimes New Zealanders can take a little bit of encouragement to get on board. But if we've thought about all of these things that that they might hang on to as a reason to not get on board with your event. If we've thought about them ahead of time and we're making a plan that's really inclusive and easy for them to access, then it's all the more likely that they're going to rock up to the event and participate and have a really good time.
And the other thing that we always sign off is, because it's Rodney Neighbourhood Support, we have a privacy confidentiality. We ask for people's consent. We get written consent that they're happy for any photos that may be taken that they might be in, that we can use for our magazines or our newsletters. And so when they actually, we have a sign-in table, and they sign in, and on that sign-in is, we point out to them, are you happy if we take photos and you're in it? Can we use them for promoting Rodney Neighbourhood Support?
I wouldn't have thought about that.
And these are things that you can do, Phoebe, and perhaps if you've got your Facebook page and you've made an event in your Facebook page, you can pop these in the discussion so that when they turn up on the day, they know, oh, there's the COVID thing, there's the seating, and if somebody's going around taking photos, that they're not going to be freaked out or wonder what's going on, that you've talked about it a little bit ahead of time. Yeah.
Hey, just thinking for future events, like once we have the launch of our community garden, we've already had a couple of local newspapers do kind of little stories on it. So we'd invite them back. How does that work for newspapers? Do they have to get people's permission?
So usually with a newspaper, they have to operate on a very similar privacy policy and agreement to what Susan's referred to. And I imagine that what Susan uses is very similar to what they do. So if a newspaper turns up and there's a photographer, they will, after they've taken the pictures of people, when they go up to get their names and spelling of their names so they can credit them properly, they will get consent, and that's part of their journalistic practice and part of what they do. Yeah, so you don't, definitely want to invite people and let them know you can, there's going to be people with photographers there, but if they're there representing an established media outlet, they will most likely be doing that themselves as part of their due diligence.
So for something a bit more impromptu, like in terms of the houseplant swap, it'd be great to document it and put it on the Facebook. Can you literally just say to people that you're taking a photo of, hey, are you happy for me to take a photo and for it to be on the Facebook? Is that enough, or do you literally have to have people sign a piece of paper about it?
That's enough for sharing something on social media. It's if you're publishing something in like a magazine or a newspaper that you need to be a little bit more careful. Just because there's different privacy policies for different media channels. If you can hear my cat meowing in the background, he's really hungry. It's just really good to know that to give people a heads up. So I tend to operate out of an abundance of caution, just because I don't like it when people snap pictures of me and don't let me know what it's for and just pop it up on Facebook without my permission. So if you've just got somebody like yourself or one of your other team members there who's taking pictures, maybe it's about popping into the discussion of the Facebook event or in your follow-up emails, there'll be somebody from Forest Hill Garden taking photos for social media. Just let them know if you don't want to be part of it, or going straight up to people and saying, do you mind if I take a picture of you for Facebook with your plants? And making that really, really clear, because it's a private event that you're putting on, but you are welcoming the community into it, and it's in a public space. You don't have to, you specifically, Phoebe, don't have to have those signed policies. However, if you were going to start publishing it in media like a magazine or newspaper, that's when it starts to get, you need written permission from people.
Yeah, all good. No, that's great. It'll just be social media at this point, so that's fine. Cool, thank you.
Any other questions about COVID or policies or anything to do with events? Anything you didn't get to talk about? No?
Yep, been brilliant.
Oh, well, I'd like to thank everybody for making time on a Thursday night during a weird time in New Zealand to chime in and share your ideas and share your enthusiasm. Thank you so much, Phoebe, for all of your great questions. And thank you, Delia, for coming in and sharing all your exciting community activations about the walking bus and different channels we can tap into. Thank you to Courtney and Kitty for jumping in and listening and contributing and sharing with us your information. And a big thank you to you, Susan, for your expertise and your preparedness. I think I'm not the only one who really appreciated having you here this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Good luck to everyone with their events.
Yeah, good luck to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've got my email if you need it. But I'll be in touch with the links to this and some of the resources I've talked about. And I hope to talk soon. And for those of you in Auckland, hopefully I'll be able to come to some of your events.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke.
Have a lovely night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And Phoebe, I might call in and visit your because that's where I grew up. We played bull rush on that park when we were kids.
Community happening right here.
So magic. Luke and Susan, I'll see you there on the 20th.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.